Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, Ma'am Sari and my friends. Last week, we talked about language and nonverbal communication. Now, we are going to explore about language, communication, and identity in intercultural context. Identity is not just who we are, but how we express ourselves, how we relate to others, and how we navigate the world around us. In this presentation, we will explore identity plays a crucial role in communication, particularly in intercultural context. Before we start, let me introduce myself. My name is Dimas Dahliana Juliani. My student ID number is 007. So, without any further ado, let's get started. Language, communication, and identity in intercultural context. Let's start with the introduction. Identity is a central theme in language and intercultural communication. As the psychologist Vygotsky said, through others, we become ourselves. Our identity is shaped through social interactions, and language is a key tool in this process. It's not just a way to communicate, it's how we learn cultural norms, values, and practices. Next, characteristics of identity. Identity is characterized by several key factors. Number one is developed through socialization. Identity is shaped by the process of socialization, where individuals internalize the values and norms of the groups they belong to, from family to society. Number two is shape in diverse cultural contexts. Identity evolves through interactions with different cultural groups, expanding or altering one's sense of self. 3. Multiple and complex, as known as multilingual. Identity is made up of various aspects: personal, social, cultural, and professional that interact to form a whole. 4. Dynamic and stable. While identity evolves over time, it also provides consistency and continuity in how we perceive ourselves. 5. Chosen and ascribed. Some parts of identity are self-chosen, while others are assigned by societal factors such as race or gender. 6. Variable in strength and silence. Different aspects of identity can become more or less important in different contexts, influencing behaviors and interactions. And the last is expressed through verbal and nonverbal means. Identity is communicated not just through language, but also through body language, clothing or dress up, and other nonverbal cues. Let's move to identity formation. Identity formation begins in early life through socialization, where individuals learn societal roles, norms, and values. On the left, primary socialization. Primary socialization occurs within the family, educational institution, religious, and media, which all play key roles in shaping how we view ourselves and our place in society. On the right, as individuals grow older, their identity may evolve through exposure to different cultures and experiences. The process is also influenced by the type of culture one lives in. Individualistic culture promotes personal autonomy and self-expression, for example, in the United States, while collectivist cultures emphasize group affiliation and harmony, for example, in East Asian and so on. There are types of identity. The first one is personal identity. Personal identity is the sense of self, including individual traits, values, beliefs, and experiences that make a person unique. For example, a person identifying as an introvert who enjoys reading and spending time alone, but also values deep friendships. 2. Social identity is identity derived from social groups and affiliation such as family, friends, or peer groups. For example, identifying as a member of a sports team or a book club that shape how a person interacts with others. And my own example, I joined the fandom that it is from K-pop, and we have friends that interest with the groups, and we know that the same, we have a lot of things that we know, have the same bias, we have the same types, and so on. Cultural identity is identity shaped by cultural heritage, traditions, and customs. For example, someone who identifies as Chinese American, integrating the cultural practices and values from both their Chinese and American backgrounds. Racial and ethnic identity is identity formed by racial, ethnic background and shared history. For example, a person who identifies as Black, whose experience of social identity may influence how they view themselves and navigate society. Gender identity is a personal sense of gender. For example, a person identifying as a woman and a transgender person who identifies as male or non-binary. Sexual identity is how one identifies in terms of sexual orientation and attraction. For example, a person identifying as gay or bisexual based on whom they are romantically or sexually attracted to. Next, each identity is the way a person identifies in relation to their age and societal expectations surrounding it. For example, a 50-year-old who still feels young at heart and resists the stereotypical expectations of aging. Religious identity is identity formed by religious beliefs and practices. For example, someone who identifies as Muslim and incorporates Islamic practices into their daily life, such as praying 5 times a day. Next, physical and mental identity is identity shaped by physical or mental abilities. For example, a person with a disability who identifies as a wheelchair user and participates in advocacy for accessible spaces. Next, national identity is identity tied to one's nationality and shared national experiences. For example, a person who strongly identifies as American feels pride in national events and cultural symbols like the flag or national anthem. Next, regional identity is identity shaped by regional or local origins and the cultural characteristics. For example, someone from New York City who identifies fast-paced, diverse, and urban culture of the city. Global identity is a sense of belonging to a global community, transcending national boundaries. For example, a person who identifies as a global citizen, caring about worldwide issues like climate change and human rights. Organizational identity is identity shaped by affiliations with a specific organization or institution. For example, an employee identifying strongly with their company's values and mission, such as identifying as a Google employee who values innovation. Next, professional identity is identity based on one's profession or career role. For example, a person who identifies as a doctor, seeing their professional responsibilities and training as a central to who they are. And the last is virtual identity is the identity one constructs in digital or online spaces. For example, an individual identifying as a gamer or content creator on social media, shaping how they present themselves in online communities. Alright, let's move to identity dynamics. Identity is not a fixed concept, but a dynamic and evolving process. On the left, dynamic nature, life experiences, relationships, and cultural interactions continuously shape and refine one's identity. However, on the right, a forward versus ascribed identity. A forward identity refers to individuals choose to define themselves, while ascribed identity is imposed by others based on external characteristics such as race, gender, or social status. Identity evolutions. Over time, individuals may experience shifts in how they perceive their identity based on new life experiences or exposure to different cultural norms. Now let's talk about identity and communication. Identity plays a crucial role in how we communicate with others. Both verbal and nonverbal communication are essential for expressing and negotiating identity. Verbal expressions is language communication, not only ideas but also aspects of identity. Nonverbal expressions is nonverbal cues such as body language, facial expressions, and clothing further communicate identity. For instance, a person's attire and posture can reflect social status, cultural affiliation, or personal styles. Impact on intercultural relation. In intercultural communication, differences in language and nonverbal cues can lead to misunderstandings, requiring cultural sensitivity and awareness to foster effective communication. There are several pictures that it's my own identity. In conclusion, identity is not just a concept, but a living, evolving part of who we are. It's shaped by personal experiences, social influences, and cultural contexts. By understanding the complexities of identity and its role in communication, we can more meaningful and empathetic communication to others. I think that's all for my presentation. Thank you so much for your nice attention and thank you so much for watching. And the last I say, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.